Hey T, hey Jill. Jen, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
All right, so we just wanted to have an opportunity to highlight some of the stories and perspectives of some of our Baylor team leaders today. So I've also had an opportunity to serve, so I'd be happy to share as well. But essentially, we wanted to really just emphasize some of that storytelling and the experience pieces. So for so many of our team leaders, this is something that we ask many of our faculty and staff to serve in, and it's in addition to your role. So we want to say thank you and how much we appreciate you all for really taking the time to lead and guide our students and partners and so forth. So before we get started, I would like to have an opportunity to just introduce yourself for those of you that are on the call and maybe share a team or some teams that you've worked with specifically at Baylor.
I'll hop in there. So I am Tierka Hudson. I currently serve as the Corconuts Resident Hall Director within the Department of Campus Living and Learning. And I have had the pleasure to lead 2 mission trips for our First in Line program. And so that program is specifically for in cater and design, specifically in mind with our first generational college students. And so I led a team last year and this year to the Dominican Republic, and we built a home for a family in need. And it was just like such a transformational experience. I really enjoyed leading first gen students. I think that's very unique because sometimes like our experience is just our parents are a little worried to go across, across the country. But to do that along like that particular group of students was just life changing. So I really enjoyed it. But in short, I led 2 mission trips to the DR.
Thank you, T. Thank you. I'll pass it over to Jen. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? I want to pronounce your name correctly.
No, it's Jeannie, but it's my parents' fault. I don't know why they didn't put an I in there, but they didn't. So,
Jeannie,
but
got it.
I'm Jeannie Carey, and I'm the director of simulation for the School of Nursing up in Dallas, Texas. So, any opportunity I have to interact with people on the Waco campus, I always look for that. So, but I have been on 4 mission trips for Baylor, and the last 2 have been with a joint team made up of students from the Medical Service Organization. So they're all Waco-based students, and then students from the School of Nursing. And the students from the Medical Service Organization are pre-health, pre-med, all sorts of things students. So it's a lot of fun to bring the disciplines together before they actually are even in their professional disciplines. But my hope is that maybe this experience, along with all the value that comes just from the actual mission work, the added benefit of recognizing the value of teamwork within healthcare and the different roles of healthcare providers and how we can work together for the benefit of patients. So the last 2 years, the MSO nursing trip has gone over spring break to Peru. We fly in and out of Lima, but then we work with an organization called OSA and work with the people of Coyique, which is a smaller community outside of Lima. So we've been there twice, and the plan this year, in 21, is to go during the May mini-mester or the May time period, since there won't be a spring break. So that's the plan.
All right. Thank you. And passing it over to Jill, who's also the mastermind behind part of the operations and everything for missions too. So definitely a great perspective to bring as well.
You're funny. So good morning or it's good afternoon. I don't know, whenever you might be watching this. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever. My name is Jill, and I am the Assistant Director for Missions Operations, and I have been in this position since 2017, and I love it every day. And in addition to kind of working with all of the team leaders and the students and coordinating trips, I actually was able to lead one team to Houston when we were doing some disaster response after a hurricane came through. So it was a wonderful time, huge group of students, and was Lovely.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. And my name is Dominic McShann, and I've served previously with now the Baylor Medical Student Association on a domestic trip where we go down to South Texas, McAllen, and so forth. And it's really a great opportunity to one, shadow at a clinic, but also work specifically with the local church there and to do some support work at the Refugee Center with Catholic Charities. So a really diverse experience over the week, and it was over spring break as well. I also had plans on going to South Africa, but we've made some adjustments for this past year. And I also had the opportunity to serve with Terica as well, with the Baylor First in Line experience, working with Casa por Cristo in the Dominican Republic. So some unique experiences, and I think just being able to see things from the behind the scenes aspect and also to experience it myself has been very transformational. So enough about me and enough of my talking. I want to just hear from you all, specifically some of those stories. If you all could just share one story that has really stood out from you, from your experience serving on mission trips, and that can be whether that is an interaction with a particular student or just an experience that you had in country or on site. Could you all share just kind of one story that when you just think about a really transformational experience that you'd be willing to share?
Yes. So my first year going to Santiago, Dominican Republic, we were able to give to a grandmother and her husband, and they had three grandchildren, and we were able to build a home for them. So in conjunction with their local church. And when me and my team got off the bus the first year, I was the first person that she encountered. And the hug that was given to me and the embrace that I felt from the culture, they were just so grateful. Like their hearts were really, I feel like we have restored hope for them in so many ways. And in that moment, I got emotional. I am an emotional person. When you're giving back, it's not even about just the giving part. It's the transformational that occurs. And when the grandmother she held me, she cried. Like she never had any prior information about me. She don't know who I am. All she knows is I'm coming to help her and her family. And that connection was just so powerful. And if you look through pictures from last year throughout the mission trip, you will see me crying in so many pictures because I just felt so overwhelmed with joy and like feeling God's presence by blessing this family with a home. And it was just shelter, right? So they didn't have any running water. It was just the ability to have something to cover them and to keep them safe and warm. And the family was just so grateful, and you felt it before I even got my hands dirty. Like she was just grateful to have people there to lead her and to build alongside the community. So my first interaction, like stepping off the bus, was like powerful, and all throughout the week you could feel God's presence, you could feel the community, you could feel the culture, you could feel the genuine connection that this family really deserved to have, like the hope of God present, and just the whole totality of everything and how it came together throughout that week was so powerful. I still think about that family out there. And when I went back this year, they were so happy to see me because they never thought that they would see me again. So like I took off my earrings and gave them away. Like you just give so freely. And I learned like, don't be so caught up with what we have, the material things, but the real blessing is like the love that we have, the compassion that we have, the ability to serve with our hands, to love with our heart, and to really like share how we feel with our, just the ultimate feelings. So I can talk on and on and on, but you asked for one interaction, but that one interaction was like so powerful for me, just the hug and the embrace, the tears that was shed. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Terica. Jeannie, did you have anything you wanted to share as well?
Sure. So a couple of them that jumped right out at me when you said pick one or two. But one was the first trip that we made to Coyhaique, and we were performing or holding a health screening type fair right out on the street on the sidewalk. But I mean, just went into one of the, more populated, busy or intersections of the area and set up tables, and we were taking blood pressures and checking vision and looking in ears and just doing basic health screenings. But you know, seeing the people who, you know, obviously they were just looking at us. We were a pretty big group and wanting to know what we were about and coming over and talking with us, and watching the students get more and more comfortable with each passing minute. And even those that didn't think that they really spoke very good Spanish were all of a sudden trying and realizing that, you know, it wasn't as much of a barrier to communication. There's more than, you know, just the spoken word as far as ways to communicate. But then one instance was one of the students from MSO took a blood pressure and wasn't really sure, you know, he had heard right or was a little bit unsure of himself. So he went over and got one of the nursing students and asked her if she would double check what he got. And we actually took one of the teaching stethoscopes, which has two different ear sets so that two people can listen at the same time. And so they were working together and confirming that they did in fact hear what they thought they heard. And so then they came over and got me and said, "Do you want to take a blood pressure here and give a check?" And you know, meanwhile, the patient's looking at us like, "What's wrong with me? Why are all these people coming?" So it was just a wonderful learning opportunity all the way around for everyone. As it turned out, the patient was fine. You know, it wasn't anything we had to address right that minute, but the students were not real sure of themselves, but I liked watching how, you know, they kind of followed the progression. They were, you know, what we talked about afterward was, you know, that's a huge part of healthcare is the ability to recognize when you need help or when it might benefit the patient to go ahead and collaborate with somebody else. And so the fact that, you know, the student from MSO was like, "Yeah, I've been practicing this and I'm pretty sure I know how to take blood pressures, but I'm probably not as good as that nursing student who has done a whole lot more. So let me go ask her if she'll help." And then when the two of them confirmed with one another that, yeah, this was something that maybe a third party should know about, then they came to me. And if those kind of lessons get taken into healthcare, those are going to be huge benefits for future patients that these students work with. So again, I'm, you know, I could tell lots of stories about the people of Coyique and the wonderful team at OSA that we partner with. And those are, you know, great and wonderful stories as well. But I guess part of me with this little panel here is deciding I'll focus on the unique collaboration between, you know, MSO and the nursing school, and how that, you know, just bringing a team, I guess in the formation of the team, you know, we're already meeting some of our objectives and having and realizing some benefits without even, you know, before we ever even, you know, start off on our trip. And that's been really neat to see. So I'm just really grateful that I have an opportunity to be a part of this, because it's, like I said, it's neat to see, and it's really neat to think about the impact that it might be having on future patients.
I love that partnership too. It's so cool to see those two come together. It's pretty neat.
Absolutely. And then I think that just also affirms, you know, when we think about, for many of our teams, a discipline-specific aspect of being able to not only go and serve and connect with people and to share the love of God, but to also think about how can you dive deeper into your vocation. Your vocation is calling. So I think that's a very unique story and experience where we're seeing a pipeline of students that, you know, we can connect. Some maybe students that may be pre-health and so forth, but also students that are already in nursing and also working with faculty. So that's kind of hitting all of the points there. Jill, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was thinking about when we did the Hurricane Harvey relief, part of our group was a student organization called Engineers with a Mission. And so they went down and connected in some of the southern part of Houston that was affected by that storm. And the partner really embraced those students and put them to work. And I went to do a site check, and I was stunned at what our engineering students were learning. while they were helping others. And it was so beautiful to see it happening. And before I left, one of the sites, the grandmother whose home they were in, they had totally had to strip all of her floors and up about 8 inches off the ground on the drywall and the all baseboard stuff and all that stuff. And so they'd been working hard there for a solid 2 days. And she was just sitting in her lawn chair, just tickled that our students were not only willing to come, but to come with a sense of enthusiasm to learn, because they didn't know how to do any of that before they got there. So that was a really cool experience for me. I could rattle on forever on a bunch of other different trip stories of some of the things that I love, or when our students go on a trip and they connect with the community and they end up returning sometimes as an intern for the organization we're connected with. We've got one situation, whatever, that's not the right word. That means situation has bad connotations. I take that back. We have one awesome thing where a BRH choir member back in the day went with BRH to South Africa on a mission trip, fell in love with the country, decided to move there, work there in ministry, and now our current BRH choir goes and visits her where her ministry is, and that's where their mission trips are kind of bouncing between that and one other location. And that's just like full circle for me. So it's really some cool stuff's happening.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I think one thing is also interesting, at least for me, I feel like we can be called and God can move in so many unique ways as far as connecting our experiences and journeys. So I'd also be just interested to hear maybe what was the story for each of you on how you kind of got connected as a team leader for one of your teams. For some of you that may have done multiple, or even some teams outside of Baylor, but what was kind of that journey, if you could pick one that you would like to share to that team?
Well, I'll jump in here because I love telling this story because it shows that, you know, if God really wants you, it's going to happen. Because my first 3 trips, so I've told you I've been on, I've been on 5. So anyway, my first 3 trips, I was not the first choice. The very first trip, I stepped in very last minute. I want to say maybe 3 weeks before the trip, and that was it was a domestic trip. That was part of the reason it was able to do it at the last minute. But it was the School of Nursing's trip, and one of the faculty team leaders had something come up and wasn't able to go, and so I went, and it was my first mission trip ever. And it was probably good that I didn't have a whole lot of time to think about it. And I just said yes and went, and was open to the experience, and had a great team and a great co-leader. So it was obviously a positive experience. But I don't know that I came home saying, oh, I got to do this. You know, this is it. This is what I need to do for the rest of my life. So I didn't really actively pursue the next one, but the same type of situation occurred where a team leader down on the Waco campus had to back out kind of last minute. And, you know, Jeannie Carey did it last minute last year. Maybe she'll do it last minute this year. So I went on that trip. And that happened for the 3rd time. And then after that, I was actually brought on for the idea of this MSO nursing combination trip. And so I feel a little bit like this one's my baby, and this one's, but, you know, as far as the whole, you know, it's not something I always knew I wanted to do. It's not something I ever was exposed to growing up as far as doing mission trips. But you know, being in the right place at the right time, and God knowing what he had in plan for me, put me where I needed to be, allowed me to say yes when, you know, others weren't able. And so, you know, here I am.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
For me, when I first got to Baylor, so I arrived at Baylor in 2017, and I'm really big about like crafting your professional narrative. So I intentionally put, I really want to work with missions. Like I know I want to work with missions, and I'm a first gen college student, so I really want to be connected with our first gen office. And so my first year, I met with Holly Tate at the time, and so she was like super excited to like have me wanted to like serve with my hands and lead with my heart. So she was like, we're gonna put you on a mission trip. And so I was originally supposed to go to Ghana trip, but because I'm in housing, that's also was like close down period for us during that Maymester. And so she was like, don't worry, I'll get you connected, you know, just stay tuned, but we really would need team leaders. So I was like, okay, no worries. I knew I would have plenty of time to serve at Baylor in a different capacity. So also alongside that, I was in contact with First in Line, just doing like just general work with them, connecting with first gen students. And my second year, Mito remembered that like I wanted to one, serve on a mission, and then also that I'm very passionate about First in Line students. And so he saw me at a Mosaic and Mixer and was like, Tiarica, like I remember you saying you want to do work with first gen. Thank you for the things that you have done, but we really would love for you to lead this mission trip. So I was like, okay, great. Like, I would love to, like, yes, like, how many students will I be responsible for? I said yes before I even knew all the details. So I was just so excited that one, he remembered, like, my passion for first gen and that he knew that I wanted to lead a mission trip. So, like, that intentionality there for him to, like, consider me for the opportunity. And so he asked, I gave a yes immediately before I even asked anything and figured out the details. I was like, yep, I want to do it. And so that was my introduction with me just being intentional, reaching out with missions. And originally supposed to go to Ghana, but God had places for me otherwhere. And so I was super grateful to work with a group that I'm very passionate about, which is First Gen.
And I could probably say this about every team leader, but in particular, these two team leaders, our students enjoy you guys so much. They learn from you guys so much. They're thrilled that you are there. You've taken such good care of our students, and that enthusiasm that you have is contagious. And our students that travel with you guys are always so just sweet when they're sharing their stories with us. It often has to do with the things that you guys help them along with during the trip. Everything from flying for the very first time to making that, figuring out what to do with the passport, to eating something you've never seen or heard of before, to figuring out you do in fact know how to take a blood pressure or hammer a nail in. So I'm so thankful for you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jill. And I even think this isn't about me, but I think back to like at least the first trip that I was pulled in pretty last minute like Jeannie, and I was like, okay, it's all good. I'm down for whatever. I drive the van.
Yes.
But it was specifically going to serve in McAllen and in the valley, the Rio Grande Valley. And I found it very interesting that prior to me coming to Baylor, long story short, I worked in a cultural center. And a lot of our programs were also catered to our Hispanic Latino community. And that was also a significant learning opportunity for me, specifically when it came to about immigration and undocumented student, just unique challenges, perspectives, experiences. Went through a really great training and even like a process of like, going through how do you get to, U.S. citizenship. So that in itself and understanding a lot of things that I just didn't know. And then to be connected with a mission trip within like my first year here. And I think for me that like I cried in one space because I felt like when God called me, because I felt like it was almost like a full circle experience in the sense of that like I was not knowledgeable of something significant, and then to have an experience to see it in person. But then it was like, this is no longer on a screen. This isn't just a conversation, but I'm here, and to like see people and to see and to look individuals in the eyes. And I was like, this must have been God's calling for me. And it wasn't necessarily I sought the experience out, but it was one of those things where like I was open and willing. I said yes. So that's just kind of my experience. One last question as we begin to wrap up. I did want to ask you all, just as far as like if there was anything that you all would like to share with other faculty or staff that may be somewhat interested or considering serving as a team leader. Is there any just encouragement, advice, or feedback that you would like to share with those advisors? And no pressure, since you have mission staff on the call, so no pressure at all.
Oh gosh.
I mean, I would just say, you know, if you at all have any inkling that this is something that you can do, should do, want to do, to go for it, that there's wonderful support from Baylor, from the partners, from your other team members, the leaders and the students. You're certainly not in it alone by any means. And you learn a lot about yourself. I mean, I've told the students this, and I think it's the same can be held true for those of us who have, you know, had the opportunity to lead or might lead future ones. It's perfectly okay if the main reason you're signing up is because, you know, that you're thinking more of that it's about you. In other words, a lot of the pre-health students, it's like, well, this is going to look good on my resume, or it might look good on my resume. That's a whole nother story we usually get into on the trip. But, you know, because even if you think that your initial impetus for wanting to go is, you know, hey, this is a way to see a part of the world I've never seen before, or, hey, experience something new or different, I think that's fine. I think that, you know, God doesn't say work has to be horrendous or that the good things that we do can't be enjoyable. So, you know, whatever might be kind of telling you that this is something that you should consider or take a stab at, I think, you know, you won't regret it. And there is lots and lots of support to make sure that you, you know, can do the best job that you can for the students.
Awesome, thank you.
For me, you know, I'm gonna go with one of my favorite brands, Nike. Just do it. And I promise I'm not getting paid by any means for sponsorship, but I believe that you should just do it. You know, if you feel called and led when God calls, we want to answer the call, right? And so just being able to have the ability to just, one, the opportunity, the resource, like Baylor is a great space that we have the resources to send our students abroad, well, across the seas. And so making sure that we take full advantage, but more importantly, we can immerse ourselves in what it really means to embody cultural humility, right? And so like going and taking yourself completely out of our comfort zone, completely out of the classroom as a faculty member or in your everyday day-to-day operations, like it's such a humbling experience to go and learn a new language, to walk alongside those that may be broken, to be able to, you know, stand for the broken and, you know, and like really like advocate their voice and edify their voices and not try to be savers. Like we're not trying to be savers in those spaces, but we're trying to walk alongside people. And it goes along with our Christian mission and our university mission to build those worldwide leaders. Like we want to make sure that like we ourselves are taking on that global perspective alongside our students. Like we can't expect our students to do something that we're not willing to do. And so I'm always like, hey, just do it. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to do some inner reflection, to say, what are my biases? What are the things that I may have taken on about, or the misconceptions of different countries, but like how I'm unlearning those things to really appreciate different cultures. And so I am a firm believer, do it. Missions is great. Our partners are great. Other team leaders are great. So you will have the support system early on. And it's really good to be able to travel with your students, to be able to see how they transform with such short time. And it's an opportunity for you to share your story. So they get to see you outside of your role. And so, you know, you exchange your story. So when you return back, they see you as a resource. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been to, to lunch with students, or they pop out my office. So they see me as a resource and not just a staff member, but like somebody that genuinely cares about them. So if you're asking me, just do it like Nike. You're done.
Thank you, T. Did you want to add anything as well as we wrap up?
The only thing I would add to that is we have many trips where we fit leaders in, and we have many trips where leaders begin trips. And sometimes it's within your academic discipline, and sometimes it's not. We've got one communications, two different professors from communications lead a trip for a pre-vet organization, and they go and work in an animal sanctuary, and it is there's no limits here. So whatever your passion is, whatever it is that God may be calling you to serve outside of the box, we're here to help you make that happen. And we're so thankful that you would even think about it. So, and reach out anytime.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. That's going to conclude our time for our Team Leader Thursday. We want to thank you all for all that you do for Baylor, for our students, for our teams, and just the work that you all continue to do in communities in which we want to connect, serve, and love. So thank you all for joining, but that's going to conclude our time today.
All right.
All right. Bye. You all have a great afternoon.
So good to talk to you guys.